The objective: to deliver the NBA to you like no other. News, play breakdowns, power rankings, storylines you never hear talked about anywhere else. It's all straight shots here, fired by straight shooters. S and Gunn. This is the Objective Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Objective Basketball Podcast. S joining you. Lauren here as always. Lauren, I'm not going to lie to you. So this awards prediction stuff and, you know, us giving our picks, it has been stressful. Yeah. It has been really stressful because this year, maybe more than any other year, is just open to so much debate. Yeah. You could go the games played route and say, oh, well, you know, these guys haven't played enough games, so we should reward the people who have played enough games. And I think, especially with the CBA negotiations happening in the background of this, the whole games played argument has amped itself up to the 10th degree. Definitely. But then there's also the contract incentive department of this, hey, there's money on the line for people, for players when it comes to these selections. I know a while ago ESPN had that graphic with Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam, and I believe it was another player. Maybe it was Domantas Sabonis. It was Domantas Sabonis. Mm-hmm. And it was like, these guys would lose out on this much money if they don't make an All-NBA team. And it was like in the $50+ million range. It's like Jaylen Brown would lose like $70 million. Pascal Siakam potentially loses $80 million. Domantas Sabonis might lose $80 million. So like, there are real life, tangible consequences to these decisions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's good in a sense because Lauren and I do not have a vote. We do not have an NBA vote. So our picks, our predictions don't, really matter at all that much. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. What a way to sell this podcast. Yeah, folks, we actually don't matter. No, I'm kidding. But listen, no, in general, it was just tough. It was tough to make these selections, make these decisions. And yeah, it's going to have huge, basketball related implications for a lot of these guys. Lauren, did you go any certain way when you were picking the all NBAs, the all defenses, did you go a certain way? Did you approach it in a certain manner?
Yeah, I think more specifically with all NBA, I went and I always kind of tend to go this way. And this year, like you mentioned, for certain reasons is a little bit different than other years. It's more open, but games played and team record is always going to hold a lot more weight with me. I mean, I am never going to be the person that looks at just the numbers, even the advanced stats, and says, okay, that's good enough for me. I need to take everything into context. And so more so, I would say even looking at guys all second team versus all third team, that came into play for some guys specifically. And we'll get into that later. Even their team success maybe wasn't even enough to overcome what some of these other guys are doing numbers wise. So on one hand, it's something that I greatly take into consideration, but at the same time, if your team is very good and maybe towards the top of the West, but what somebody's doing numbers-wise is just the best year of their career, it's hard for me to overlook that as well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but something that will always, always, always weigh heavily on my mind is the team success.
Okay, fair enough. I think it's, baseball is in a weird position because you can, with all the advanced numbers that they have in baseball, somehow specifically derive how much impact that player has on the team's record. Like, genuinely, you can do it, especially if it's a pitcher and they're not playing every single game. So you can know in the games they've played versus the games they haven't played, and then you can tell. But with basketball, we haven't reached that level of analytics yet. And maybe we never will. Maybe, I mean, who knows? But like, in terms of, I personally wouldn't like it to be like that because then it's cookie cutter. It's like, oh, we know who the best players are. It's just about getting them the awards. I think when it comes to the NBA, there's a little bit of how we contextualize impact, because I could sit right here and tell you that Nikola Jokic is leading the NBA. Actually, he's not leading the NBA anymore. It's Jakob Poeltl, by the way. But
just had to slide that in there.
You had to slide that in there. But no, I can tell you right now that Nikola Jokic for the majority of the season was leading the NBA in plus minus. And because of that, he's the most impactful player in the NBA. And, you know, I would probably be right in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But is that a case against Joel Embiid? Is that a case against a Sabonis who has revolutionized the Sacramento Kings here?
Mm-hmm.
And I know his plus minus isn't as crazy, and his impact on the court for the Kings is seismic, but is it as seismic as Jokic for the Nuggets? And obviously it is. The answer is yes. Jokic is a leap ahead of what Sabonis is as a player. My point is finding ways to contextualize and talk about that in a way where the numbers are aiding what you have watched, what we have covered for the entire season, is that very, very thin needle that we're trying to thread with this podcast. So let's start with the easy ones, shall we? So that we can just get those out of the way. Coach of the year, Mike Brown, yes or no?
It has to be Mike Brown. I don't even think the votes will be close.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, the Kings, they were, I've said this before on the podcast, but their preseason predictions were 33.5 wins. They are well on their way, I believe, to 50 wins. I think they should probably crack 50 by the time it's done. They're at 46-30 right now, which means they have 6 games left to be able to crack 50. They might not crack 50, but look, the fact that we're talking about that and their preseason projection was 33.5, a lot of that has to do with Mike Brown. Completely revolutionized the Kings offense. Obviously made it so that Sabonis looks good. De'Aaron Fox looks good. The secondary players in a Keegan Murray and a Kevin Huerter, those guys are elite and they're performing at a high level. It's because of the offense that Mike Brown has instilled there. It's because they have this motion offense that's very similar to the Golden State Warriors, a team that Mike Brown was an assistant for a very long time. So I think there's no question in my mind it's Mike Brown. Now, that being said, I'll give you a 2 and a 3. Mark Daigneault, Oklahoma City Thunder coach, would be my number 2 in this situation. And Joe Mazzulla for the Boston Celtics would be my 3rd pick in this situation. Again, I think they should get recognition. They should probably get the nod. But I really think there's a good chance this might be a unanimous win for Mike Brown.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I do think that Mike Daigneault is going to get some recognition, but I would be very curious to see if it is unanimous, because I do feel like that this is probably the first time in a long time where it's been
easy.
Maybe not a long time, but I feel like there's always two. There's always two up towards the top of just two very dominant teams. But what the Kings have done this year, and you mentioned it with getting close to 50 wins versus their initial prediction, but it's not even just, again, it's not just the numbers when we're talking about contextualizing all of these conversations, what you see on the court and even going beyond that, like the stuff that's not just on the numbers, not just in the wins. You now have these guys locked in. I was actually just having a conversation the other day about Harrison Barnes and his impending free agency. Right. And a couple of months ago, I would have said he's gone. If they don't deal him at the deadline, now's the time to cash out. But now I'm like, Harrison Barnes is a loyal guy. They're winning. Like, they've just completely just brought back this franchise, and everybody that's there seems to be locked in and for the cause, for the beam, all of it. And so it's beyond a lot more than just one season where you've exceeded your expectations.
Well, he's found a way to motivate the guys too, right? He's found an incredible way to do it. I remember De'Aaron Fox had a quote, I think maybe 30 or 40 games into the season. He said, like, Mike Brown believes in you more than you believe in you at times. And that's important, man. That's important when your team hasn't made the playoffs, when you in your career, if you're De'Aaron Fox, you've never made the playoffs in your entire career, when you're Sabonis and you just got traded and everybody is saying how much the trade screwed the Sacramento Kings up. You hear all those things. You think about that. And then the season that the Sacramento Kings have had in response to that is just, it's incredible. And a lot of the credit, I don't love attributing too much credit to coaches. I overall think like there is so much beyond the coaching, whether it is the front office moves, how the roster looks, the players who are actually executing the things that are happening. There's multiple assistants on the side who help on a daily basis that don't get enough recognition. There's trainers, there's physical people, all that stuff. and coaches often get so much of the blame and so much of the credit. But with Mike Brown, I genuinely think that is worthy. It's worthy of what he's done. So look, I agree. I think our predictions are going to be good here moving forward. I think we got one at least. We got one correct. So we'll see what happens next. Look, speaking of predictions, ladies and gentlemen, it is March Mania at Sports Interaction. The NHL, the NBA, Major League Baseball is back. And of course, March Madness, ladies and gentlemen. So much to go on, so much to talk about. It's bananas. Play Pinata Picks and Minute Madness, exclusive games you can't play anywhere else. Use the QR code on your screen at the bottom of your screen and download, or visit sportsinteraction.com/STPN. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. So we got Coach of the Year. That is out of the way. Want to go to another one that's somewhat easy. I think it's easy. Rookie of the Year. Mm-hmm. I think Jalen Williams, Oklahoma City Thunder forward Jalen Williams, has made it a little bit more interesting of a debate than it was a couple of months ago. Yeah. But I would say that it is Paolo. I can't bring myself to say that he is all the way closed the gap, but he has closed the gap a little bit here. Mm-hmm. On the season, Paolo Banchero is averaging 19.9 points, almost 20. He's not doing it that efficiently. He's shooting 42% from the field, 29% from three, 74% from the free throw line, but he's grabbing 7 boards, doing it with pretty much all of the defensive attention set towards him. I think that's another underrated part about this, is that he's putting up almost 20 and 10 every single night, and he's doing it with all of the defensive attention being sent towards him. Jalen Williams, on the other hand, he's playing next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, playing next to Josh Giddey, playing next to Dort, and he's not the focal point whatsoever. He's still doing great, and he's doing it efficiently. I mean, he's averaging almost 15 points on 50, 35, and 80 shooting splits. He's been a superb defender from what I've seen, like in terms of what rookies are at a defensive level in the NBA. But I still think it's Paolo. Do you agree with me there?
Yeah, I do. I do think it's Paolo. I think the Jalen Williams story is phenomenal and a great one to follow. But with Paolo, the way he came in and the efficiency is something that obviously you hope and expect to get better. But yeah. I mean, Paolo, he's playing alongside Franz. He's playing alongside Jalen Suggs, who's come back and had some really great moments this season. Even Cole Anthony to a degree. I mean, he's got guys around him that have come in and have impressed already. So then to come in and establish yourself as the clear number one guy, right, that's not easy to do. And so the efficiency, I definitely think that there's room for, I guess, criticism there. But I think what Paolo has come in and done is it needs to and will be recognized, especially because I was actually having another conversation the other day where I was like, how interesting is it that you have so many rookies come in and you kind of see their trajectory, you can see the guys that are going to, like a Tyrese Maxey, for example, like comes in, impresses, but you can't quite pinpoint the ceiling. And then you just keep seeing him going up, going up, going up. But then you've got some guys like a Jason Tatum or like a Luka Doncic who come into the league and day one, it's like, whoa. You know what I mean? And I do think, for me personally, I think Paolo's one of those guys. I think once he kind of continues to adjust to the league, gets a little bit older, a little bit more experience under his belt, he's going to be this phenomenal two-way player that, I mean, I think we're already kind of seeing him be. And I think he is one of those guys. So to me, it's not much of a debate for me. Yeah.
And I'll give some love to Benedict Mathurin, Canadian guy. He's been doing it off the bench for a little bit for the Indiana Pacers. Really had a good start to the season. I think he's cooled off a little bit, but I think it's fine. He's a top 3 Rookie of the Year candidate. I think, based on his experience and what he's done in college and now what he's kind of bringing to the NBA, he seems like as much of a surefire guy to have a high floor. He has a high floor in terms of what he can be as a player. And hey, Paolo and Jalen are right there with him. So look, Rookie of the Year, all good. We got it. Completely in sync there. Mm-hmm. I want to shift over to another one that might be easy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Most Improved Player. Okay. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is easy. And the reason I say that is because I hate this award. I really do despise this award.
I hate this award.
I'm not a fan of this award. We've talked about it before. it just leaves, we talk about how most valuable player, the value in valuable player makes it so ambiguous and makes it so there's a lot of debate. Most improved also does something similar, because it's not ever about who is the most improved. It's usually about who ends up being the major, oh, wow, look what this guy is doing story of the year. And I think that's fine to a certain extent. If you look back at the other guys who have won most improved player over the last however many years, they all turned out to be really, really good players. There are very rarely ever any misses. I'll just go back the next 10 years and you tell me if there's been a miss here. Ja Morant, Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram, Pascal Siakam, Victor Oladipo, Giannis Antetokounmpo, CJ McCollum, Jimmy Butler, Goran Dragic, Paul George, Ryan Anderson. That's a miss. Kevin Love.
I forgot.
Yeah, Ryan Anderson.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Kevin Love. And then after that, there are a bunch of misses. But so far, recently, the award they've done a good job on that. Okay. Pre-2010, we don't want to talk about the fact that Aaron Brooks won most improved player, or Danny Granger was sick, by the way. I don't want to disrespect Danny Granger, but he just fell off a cliff. Anyways, Hedo Turkoglu, another guy who won most improved player, Monte Ellis. These are other guys who have not had the types of careers of the other guys I just mentioned. Already, like Ja Morant already has a better career. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think we've changed as this award has evolved, we've changed the meaning of this award to be like the coming out party for a player. Really, right. That's what this award has become. And that's why last year, Ja Morant won the award. I mean, Ja Morant is a top 2 pick in the NBA draft. He was a second-year player, third-year player, I want to say. One of those two. I can't. He was a 2019 NBA draft, so 2019.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, so he was a 3-year player. Okay, third-year player, whatever. And to me, it's like, bro, how are you going to give a third-year player who's a second overall pick the most improved? That's what he's
supposed to do. That's what drives me crazy, is that there's no consistency in this award.
Right. Yeah.
I think we both kind of go the same direction on who we believe should get the award.
Talk to me. Who is it?
I think it needs to be Lauri Markkanen. I think everybody's there, but I am curious to see how much love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets.
Okay, but this is my thing, dog.
I know.
I'm
with you.
This is what I'm
with you.
I'm just
because I go back to the year that Brandon Ingram won. I think it was him and maybe Bam that year were kind of going head to head.
Yeah.
And so I think back to that year and I remember looking at their numbers. And to me, this might sound a little wonky, but Brandon Ingram, the way his numbers exploded, were more comparable to what Lauri Markkanen has done this season in terms of becoming like oh my God,
Right.
Like, we know Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the guy in Oklahoma City. We have known that. He has been that. I feel like his stats, I was just looking at them, are pretty much the same as last year with the exception of the points. The points have taken a significant jump up with only a 1 minute increase in minutes per game since last year, which is great. But that's, again, what you expect him to do. And so I wouldn't normally be having this conversation if it weren't for Ja Morant winning last year, because I do think that precedent, especially most recent precedent, does have an impact.
Has changed what the award is. Yeah.
And sometimes, I mean, I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at the league level gets a lot of love, which some people might disagree with, but I think the players give him a lot of love. And he gets a lot of respect that Lauri Markkanen does not necessarily get, especially being on a rebuilding team. Not that OKC isn't either, but I just think Shai's been doing this a little bit longer and playing at this high level.
Well,
so I'm curious.
Also, to be fair, Shai is a better player.
Yes, he is a better player. Sure.
So I think this is where people get it twisted with the most improved player. And I think we're in line with this, is like, okay, is a player going from a top 100 player to a top 25 player a bigger leap, a more difficult leap than a player who went from a top 50 player to a top 10 player?
Yes.
Which leap is bigger? And that is something me or you, people who have not stepped on an NBA basketball court, would not be able to tell, would not be able to answer. That's one of those things that I would love to know from coaches and execs. And once we get credentialed up in this, I would love to be able to ask that question, because it's like, what's more difficult? Is it more difficult to go from a role player to a star, or a star to a superstar?
Yeah.
And if we're looking at that, Lauri Markkanen he went from a role player to a star, whereas SGA went from a star to a superstar. And I think John Morant's in a similar case last year, where it was like, okay, John Morant went from a star to a superstar.
Right.
And I think if you look at this case, it's sort of similar. Lauri Markkanen this year, he's averaging 26 points, nearly 9 rebounds, 2 assists. He's doing it on very efficient shooting. He might get 50, 40, 90 if he finishes out the year on some really, really good shooting. Gilgeous-Alexander, let's do this. He's averaging 31 points. He's doing it on pretty good efficiency as well, 50, 35, 90 shooting. He has 5 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals. He's doing it all. SGA, like, his numbers are incredible, so I don't dispute that. But if you wanted to give SGA a most improved player, you probably could have given it to him either last year or the year before that.
Exactly.
Now, I know games played in one of those scenarios kind of ruined his case for it, but I would say it's Lauri. I think Markkanen wins it.
I think he will win it too. And I will, and frankly, I'll be disappointed if he doesn't win it. More so because I do think that we just talked about this award being a player's coming out party. And even looking back at the Brandon Ingram, Pascal Siakam, some of these, even Julius Randle.
Giannis even.
Yeah, like these guys, when they win this award, it is oftentimes more the I don't want to say role player, because those guys weren't role players, but like the all-star level, not the 50 to the top 10. And so I do think that even though we're talking about recent precedent with John Morant and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think overall, when we're talking about who has improved more, I don't really know how you can dispute the Lauri Markkanen. And I do think that this year with this specific case, with it, if he doesn't win it, or if it's pretty close, I think that is going to be more of a statement on the Utah Jazz not getting the respect that they deserve. I do believe that.
I'll say this. Lauri Markkanen, to me, I do a top 50 players every year, which maybe I should start doing it into an article now that I'm thinking about it. But okay, anyways, I do a top 50 players every year. Last year, Lauri Markkanen did not make my list. He was not even considered on the list. So he probably would have been a top 60 to top 75 player last year. This year, he would be a surefire top 30, if not top 25 player this season. So that's a massive leap. Last year, when I did the list, I remember this. Shai Gilgeous was probably around 25, 23 or 25. Now he's like 10 to, maybe like 7 to like 12 or 13. I don't know, depending on where you have him. But regardless, those are very different jumps in my opinion. So I think it's Markkanen for sure. Okay.
I like pinpointing the jump though. I like having that conversation moving forward, I think is going to be an important one. So I'm glad you mentioned it and phrased it that way. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the only way we'll figure out what this award means moving forward. I think like it's just such a confusing award, most improved. Okay. So there's 3 more individual awards, and then we'll get into the team stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, actually, you know what, Lauren, let me just ask you, which way do you want to go? Which way do you want to go here? What award do you want to talk about right now?
I think we should get the 6th man out of the way.
Get the 6th man out of the way, get to the big stuff afterwards?
Get to the big stuff.
Okay, so my 6th man of the year, it's tough. This year is actually an interesting year for the 6th man of the year, because there's no one that's really like blowing everybody out of the water in terms of scoring. And if we look like, we mentioned with the most improved award, the way that this award usually has been is that they give it to scoring. Whoever is scoring off the bench the most and doing it efficiently is the one who is usually going to win this award. But when I come to you and I say, look, okay, who has played more than 41 games this season off the bench, and what are they averaging? So you look at Norm Powell. He is leading all bench scorers with 17 a game. But then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's like 30 names of guys who are averaging more than 15. So I just think it's a bigger discussion to be had than just points this year. And that's what makes it so interesting to me, because it's like, okay, which way do you want to go then? Are you talking defensive impact? Are we talking about overall impact? I went with Immanuel Quickley. That's the guy who I decided to pick. Are we on the same page?
We
here?
are, and that's so boring. Because I was gonna come in and be like, Emmanuel Quickley, 40 points this week. Like,
yeah. I'm sorry. Look, maybe we'll get into our debates a little bit later. These are a little bit easier, but my top three were Emmanuel Quickley, Malcolm Brogdon, and Norm Powell. And I think I have Quickley as the guy because he's second among all bench players in plus minus, other than Isaiah Joe is actually leading all bench players. Shout out to Isaiah Joe. He's having an incredible year, but I think
single-handedly beat the Mavs earlier this year.
Yeah. In 25 minutes off the bench for the Knicks, Quickley is averaging over 12 points. He's doing so efficiently. He's 43, 38, 80 shooting splits. He's dishing the ball a little bit more, playing really, really great point of attack defense. I think that's been a huge part of what they do. I mean, I wrote something on the Knicks and Jalen Brunson a couple of weeks ago, and just looking back at the pairing of Quickley and Hart and how well they do on the court together defensively and as well what they do offensively, it really, I feel like this is the way to go. I feel like it's Quickley. What was your kind of, how'd you decide and delineate between your 6 man of the year guys?
Yeah, sometimes, and this actually goes for a lot of the awards, maybe excluding the MVP, but another part, kind of going back to the first question you asked me, was how do you go about approaching some of these awards? Some of them it's not just, when we talk about contextualizing it, I'm looking again beyond what's happening on the court in the numbers, the full picture. And a lot of times with this award, like you mentioned, there's the scoring, and sometimes that's great, but you've got a guy like Jordan Clarkson, I think, is a great example. Maybe he'll pop off on your bench, score you a bunch of points, but is he on the team next year, or is he in trade discussions? And for me, sometimes with some of these awards, I do think something that can set a guy apart in my mind first will always be team impact. Are you affecting winning? And I think Emmanuel Quickley is doing a great job at doing that. But are you also establishing yourself as a non-negotiable key piece to a core? And I'm not necessarily talking about a young core, but whether you are a young core or you're competing for a championship, are you somebody that they cannot afford to lose? And if that is a 100% yes, no question about it, then that does carry some weight in my mind. And that's not always going to be the case in every single award and every single debate. But if I can ask myself that question, then it will play a part, especially when this last summer we were having a conversation about Donovan Mitchell. There were points even leading up to the trade deadline. Obi Toppin, Emmanuel Quickley, are they available? And now it's like the answer is no. These guys are key pieces to the formula that they're putting out there. They're having success. The Knicks are 5th in the East right now. So all of those things combined, to me, solidify him as the front runner for that award. Even though normally I feel like the 6 man of the year is averaging like at least 16 points. And that's kind of what drives the award, like you mentioned. But to me, all of those things, big picture combined for IQ, I think it's his.
Yeah, I agree with you. That I feel like that is a simple choice. Okay, for the sake of time and for the sake of moving this thing on quicker, let's do Defensive Player of the Year. Okay, DPOY is a tough one because I think there are a number of ways to approach this, but there have been three guys who have really separated themselves from the rest of the pack: Jaren Jackson Jr., Brook Lopez, and Bam Adebayo. But I think Bam has dropped off recently. I think the Heat have also struggled defensively as of late, especially post All-Star break. So I think Bam is a little bit separated from Brook and Jaren Jackson Jr. No discredit to Bam. Bam has been phenomenal. There's probably a year in the last couple of years where Bam should have been the Defensive Player of the Year. But this season, it's between Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brook Lopez.
Yes.
And to that, I say toss up.
Yeah.
I would have said, I think my reasoning for why I have Jaren Jackson Jr. as my Defensive Player of the Year comes down to this. Okay, and I've picked him. I've selected Jaren Jackson Jr. He's my Defensive Player of the Year. Before Jaren came back to the lineup, the Grizzlies were a bottom 10 defense. Okay, I believe they were somewhere around 21st. Okay, since Jaren has come back, they've been the number 1 defense, and right now they're the number 2 defense overall. Okay, right behind those mighty Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll talk about them later when we talk about all defense. But my point here is this: Brook Lopez, he has Giannis helping on the weak side. He has Drew Holiday at the point of attack. He has Chris Middleton also at the point of attack. Now you have guys like Jay Crowder, Javon Carter, very, very good defenders. The Bucks in general have a sound rotation of just solid defensive guys. Whereas Jaren Jackson Jr. and the Grizzlies, yes, Dillon Brooks is a great point of attack defender. I think Desmond Bane, despite his size issues, is a good defender.
Yeah.
John Morant is not a good defender, but that's fine. Having one loose egg is fine. Steven Adams, also not like he is a good defender, but like he isn't the most versatile defender, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
That leaves me to say that Jaren's impact on the Grizzlies defense is so much more seismic than what Brooks' impact is on the Bucks defense.
Yeah.
And while Brook has had a great season defending, blocking, deterring shots, I think it comes down to the fact that his effect, like the way he's affecting shots, Jaren Jackson Jr. is just better. I'll give this to you as a stat, and I think this maybe was the decider for me when I was like really, really deciding what I'm going to go down with. Go to defensive impact on NBAstats.com. Go to defensive field goal percentage. On shots at the rim, Jaren Jackson Jr., opponents are shooting 46.7%. That's insane, by the way. Brook Lopez, opponents are shooting 50%. Draymond Green, 50%. Walker Kessler, by the way, another guy who's probably going to be in this conversation later, 51%. Mm-hmm. So these are like the elite rim protectors of the league. And Jaren Jackson Jr. is 4% better than any of them. So Jesus. I think it's Jaren. I agree. Look, there's the foul trouble stuff. There's the minutes played, all that stuff. But I think it's Jaren. My answer is Jaren. And please just tell me you went Brook because I want some disagreement. No, I'm kidding. You went Jaren, didn't you? You did.
I did. Again, the team impact and I don't need to repeat what you just said, but I think the key, if you take someone out of the formula, to me, it's as simple as you take one guy out of the formula. We have had Giannis, the Milwaukee Bucks, as top defensive player, or Giannis in the defensive player of the year category in the past.
Right.
And we've had the Bucks as the best or close to the best defenses in the past couple of years. Memphis, you take Jaren Jackson out of that equation, their defensive identity completely changes. And so I don't want to say it's terrible because you mentioned all their solid defenders that they have now, but it changes significantly much more than it would in Milwaukee if you remove Brook Lopez. So it's as simple as that for me.
Yeah. Jaren Jackson Jr. plus 11 net rating this season, actually plus 12 net rating. Brook Lopez plus 9. The Bucks they give up 109 points per 100 possessions with Brook Lopez on the court. The Bucks give up 115 points per 100 possessions with Brook Lopez off the court. When it comes to the Grizzlies, though, Jaren Jackson Jr., when he's on the court, the Grizzlies give up 108 points, so one less point compared to the Brook Lopez led Bucks. And I think that's it. Like that kind of shows you right there. It's like Jaren is legitimately impacting defense more than Brook Lopez is.
Yeah.
So I think that, you can look at the counting stats, you can look at the blocks. They're very close in that stuff, deflections, tips, all that stuff. They're very close on all that. But I think when it comes to impact, I would say that Jaren Jackson Jr.'s impact has been more. And that's why I'm giving him the defensive player of the year.
I'm with you.
All right, man. Like, I feel like we have to take a woo-saw break just because this next part, it might be a little bit crazy. Do you want to get all rookie done? Because I feel like all rookie is kind of easier than MVP.
Yeah, we can do all rookie. Let's do all rookie.
I'll give you the names. Okay.
Yeah, let's do a quick fire.
Sure. Okay. I got Paolo Banchero, Jalen Williams, Walker Kessler, Ben Mathurin, and Jaden Ivey as my first team. And then second team, I got Keegan Murray, Andrew Nembhard, Jeremy Sohan, Shaedon Sharpe, and Jabari Smith Jr. That's it.
I might have Keegan and Ivy swapped.
Fair. Okay.
But
I get it.
It's I think the tiers are pretty obvious. You know what I mean? I have to give Keegan Murray the love. He just set the 3-point.
I know.
3-pointers. Like you gotta give it to him. But
maybe I could be moved into switching Mathurin and Keegan, but then someone will be like, okay, then how do you not do that for Rookie of the Year when you have Mathurin third as Rookie
Somebody's
of the Year?
Somebody's always gonna.
Yeah, somebody's always going to do that. So you know what? We're going to keep it as is. Keep
it as is. I like it.
I will say the one that was the hardest to pick from was the final one. I wasn't really sure about Jabari Smith Jr., although he's had a better stretch recently. I was very iffy on that. I don't know. If you have a final all rookie guy that is not Jabari Smith Jr., I would love to hear your case. I think there's a case for a couple of guys. So would love to hear it out for the people who are listening. Okay, let's get back to it. We did all rookie. How about MVP? Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. I mean, this MVP conversation has been like ad nauseum. Like, man, we've talked about the MVP so much, and it's become it's kind of taken the fun out of the MVP.
I agree.
But at the same time, I mean, they've made it a close case for a reason. This is probably going to be one of the closest MVP races in NBA history, and the reason is, you saw the Tim Bontemps straw poll. I believe Jokic won, or was it Jokic that won, right? Or was it Embiid?
I believe it was Jokic.
Yeah, it was Jokic.
Now you have me second guessing.
Now I'm not sure.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
But listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is how close it is. It was decided by maybe 3 or 4 votes. Either way, it went either Jokic or Embiid, but that's how close this thing is. It's going to be a matter of a couple of votes that determine who wins, Jokic or Embiid. I think Giannis has trailed off here. I think he is the distant third in this MVP scenario, and it's just between Jokic and Embiid. It was
Embiid.
It was Embiid, right? It was Embiid who won it. Okay,
yep.
Cool. So yeah, Embiid has taken over. The Nuggets have struggled in the month of March. They haven't looked the same defensively. They've slipped a little bit. Now, to be fair, the Sixers have slipped over the last couple of weeks. And the Nuggets have kind of resurged a little bit, so it's brought the conversation back to even. And I'll just go through the stats. I'll just go through the counting stats just to make you guys happy in that regard. Nikola Jokic, he's played 67 games this season. He's averaging 25 points, almost 12 rebounds, and almost 10 assists. He's also averaging nearly 1.5 steals. He's doing it while shooting 64% from the field. I believe it's the most impactful, not most impactful. It is one of the most efficient seasons, most efficient 20-plus point seasons in NBA history that he's having. So yes, that's that. Yes, he's shooting 70%, a true shooting percentage of 70%. He is leading. It's insane what his numbers are there. He is leading in terms of all the analytical stats you could think of. He's number one in. Most of them, I would say, other than the ESPN's RPM, Jokic is leading in literally everything. Not just leading in among these 3 contenders. I'm talking about leading the entire NBA in all of these advanced metrics. So in terms of impact, he has it there as well. Now this is the case for Joel Embiid. He's leading the league in points, 33.2 points per game. He's doing so while nabbing over 10 rebounds, dishing out over 4 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks. He's played 62 games, which is a very, very good season for Joel Embiid. Just 5 less games than Jokic. He's also doing so efficiently. He still shoots the ball very, very well. He shoots better than Jokic in terms of efficiency and output. I think to me, I don't know. The Nuggets, I don't know. I hate this. I really hate this because there's still a week left in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And there's still games to be played that could decide this. I think the Sixers have some really, really important games coming down the stretch. The Sixers are right now 3rd in the East, and they play the Raptors tonight, or, they've already played them if you're listening to this, but then they play the Bucks and the Celtics next week. And those are going to be huge games, nationally televised games. It's going to be, I think those are going to probably decide the MVP award right there. If Embiid doesn't play or he doesn't play well.
Oh, if he doesn't play, that's a bad.
Yeah. So I personally, I think when it comes down to it, Jokic, by the numbers, has had a more impactful season. Okay. And watching both of these guys, I want to write about the Sixers this week. Watching both of them, I think they've both been incredibly impactful. Who's been more impactful? Even with my eyes, I can't be able to decide that for you. The numbers tell me that it's Jokic. The numbers do tell me that it's Jokic that's more impactful. But what Embiid and the Sixers have done this season is also just incredibly impressive. And for me, man, it just comes down to this. I'll give it to Embiid. I'll give it to Embiid.
I really really thought
you thought I was gonna go Jokic.
I thought you were gonna stick with it.
No, I'm gonna give it to Embiid because let's just do it. Let's just do it. He's done enough. Okay, you know how they say like to be the champ, you got to beat the champ, and I really think this year he's done enough to beat the champ. They have been miraculous and marvelous on the court with him. Embiid has been dominant. I mean, he's been the runner-up 2 seasons in a row. At this point, this is just here you go, man. MVP. That's what it is. It's like, okay, you've really been on our heels for 3 seasons. Here you go. Here's the MVP.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you feel that way? Do you agree?
I do have it going to Embiid, and I think a big part. I don't want to say a big part of it because it truly is so close, and I'm not going to be mad either way because of the year that both of them are having. And we have talked about this season for Denver being your year. If it doesn't happen, big questions going into that offseason. And so on that, you could make that along with many other arguments as to why this is yet another year for Nikola Jokic. Yeah. But to me, Joel Embiid, and you mentioned the games played, that being a really, really good year for Joel Embiid. I think another part of this conversation and the voting is the belief in the Philadelphia 76ers. And people continue to talk about the 3 best teams in the league this year, all coming out of the East, and Philadelphia is one of those teams. So I'm curious as to, and again, it's kind of like are you incorporating or including trajectory or playoff success that has not happened yet into a vote? I don't know. But when you're looking at the different categories of voters, I do think that there is more belief in Philadelphia this year. And that all comes into play with Joel Embiid's importance to that team versus Jokic, who has all of the numbers, but league-wide, I'm not sure how much belief there is that they can get the job done. You know what I mean? And so I'm curious to see from the different categories. I think the media is always going to give Jokic that respect, especially when you're looking at the numbers. But those other categories, what does that look like? You know what I mean? And so for me, this is Embiid's year, even though, like I said, we've talked about that being the case for the Nuggets. I think for Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers, going back again to our pressure cooker conversation, this is just as much their year, especially when you think of James Harden and how he comes into that formula and conversation.
Yeah. I mean, the sidebar to all this MVP talk is the fact that like how important winning a championship is for both of these teams this season. Because there is a certain level of pressure that's going to build. That's going to be a part of the conversation with these guys forever and ever. Like we brought up Dirk last week as kind of a comparing point. But I think it's very interesting moving forward. I think, you know, in a week, if Embiid is not playing against those 2 teams and maybe he ends up having a dud, it could sway Jokic. And it's gonna depend on this final week of the season, because even as me and Lauren are talking right now, we don't know. We both say Embiid. I think the national audience, the voters, will probably lean towards Embiid, because in order for a guy to win 3 MVPs in a row, and I know, for the people who are talking, it's like, oh, it's just about one season. It's just about one season. Yes, that's true. But in the minds of the voters, you can't erase what has happened beforehand. It's established. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's look, I get it. It's unfair to be weighed against those other 2 seasons. But when it's something as historical as a 3-time MVP, which has only happened a couple times, you have to consider, how are we going to approach this? And I think the voters are probably going to say, unless Jokic is clear cut running away with it, then there should be a recognition of the other guys. And I think Embiid is going to win it because of that. So that's MVP. Do you want to go through all defense real quick, or do you want me to just run through all defense real quick? I don't know.
Yeah, we can do all defense real quick. I have just a couple of like switches from probably the most common answers across the board.
Okay, cool. I got you. I'll lay it out quick. So I think for all defense, I have Now I know I'm looking at it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay. It's so hard because it's like, okay. So the thing with all defense is that they have OG Anunoby listed as only a forward. And the issue with that is that OG Anunoby hasn't played much forward this season. Yeah, even if you want to classify it as forward, he's played the majority of his quote-unquote minutes as a shooting guard this season. He's played most of his minutes at 2. He's guarded most players at the point of attack and guarding mostly your guards, right? That's what OG Anunoby has done all season. And yet he's still listed as a forward. So OG has to go against Draymond Green and Bam Adebayo and Jaden McDaniels and Evan Mobley and Jaren Jackson Jr. and an array of other players and Herb Jones and all those, so I don't know how this is going to go down, but I think based on the resumes of guys, based on what we just talked about with Defensive Player of the Year, I think Brooke and Jaren are both all defense first team.
Mm-hmm.
That third forward spot is most likely going to go to Giannis. But I could hear the argument. I can hear the argument for Evan Mobley because the Cavaliers have had the number 1 defense all season. He has been exceptional defensively. The same with Jared Allen, who has been exceptional defensively. I think he should get some recognition here as well. But the center spot is really, really tough, and I don't know how he gets that. So then now, I don't know, Lauren. I don't know. There's so much. There's so much. There's Bam Adebayo. Obviously, I mentioned OG Anunoby. I think the guards are kind of more clear.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, Drew Holiday is an all-defense guard. I think Alex Caruso is a first-team all-defense guard. I think Herb Jones is a first-team all-defense guard. A second-team all-defense guard. And I think Marcus Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, is a second-team all-defense. So, like, the guards are easy. It's the forwards that makes it all weird and like, I don't know how to approach this anymore,
Yeah, the OG, I didn't think about that. The positions, especially with when you consider who he's guarding and now who he's now going up against in the award. To me, the main switch that I was talking about earlier is Evan Mobley over Bam Adebayo, and this is probably maybe even the best example I have of team success versus record and just and stats and all those things. And Bam has very much been a part of that conversation in previous years. But when you're talking about such a dominant defense, and I could see a little bit of the argument of, okay, well, yeah, you've got Evan Mobley having this great year, but Jared Allen and their plays a massive role in their defensive identity. So how much does that take away from Evan Mobley? And I get that. But I do think that what Evan Mobley is doing and the defensive identity and success and impact of the Cleveland Cavaliers, you have to give that recognition. And so when you see a team like Miami struggling, and I mean struggling at certain points in the season, and then I think even overall underperforming, that does take away something, at least for me. And so that's probably the main swap. But I cover the Mavs, so I'm an offense person. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I mean, I am, but I'm not.
You've indocted the Jason Kidd way of thinking.
Oh, that nope. No. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I think Evan gets the nod over Bam. I think Miami. I've got some concerns about Miami, but that's going to be a conversation for another day.
Fair enough. Yeah, I know. I mean, the thing just came out saying that they thought Kyle Lowry was going to be all-star Kyle Lowry when they signed him, and it's like 37-year-old point guard who just...
You traded Precious Achiuwa for him. How you feeling about that?
Yeah, he used to lead the league in minutes for a considerable amount of time. But he means 37-year-old point guard. I don't know how that's supposed to really work out for you, but okay. So anyways, when it comes to in-pen locks for all defense, I think Brooke, Jaren, Giannis, Mobley, Drew, yeah, are locks. Caruso is also a lock, I feel, amongst people. Okay. And then Marcus Smart probably a lock as well. And then you have like 4 spots divided amongst a million people. I think Nick Claxton also deserves a nod. We talked about him for a little bit. Jared Allen deserves a nod here. Jaden McDaniels, like I mentioned, OG, Draymond, Bam. Like there's going to be a lot of guys that can make it into this. And that's why I say, ladies and gentlemen, add another team.
It's crazy.
There's 3 All-NBA teams. You should have 3 all-defense teams.
There's even 3 all-rookie teams.
No, there isn't.
Oh, there isn't?
No, there isn't. No, it's okay. No.
There you go. I thought there were 3 all-rookie teams. There's not?
There's 2. There's just 2 all-rookie teams. And no, I mean, that's okay. That's neither here nor there. When it comes to all defense, okay, the way that they actually used to have only 2 All-NBA teams, and they changed it because of the expansion of the NBA, right? They added an extra All-NBA team because there was just going to be more freaking players, but they decided not to do that with all defense, and that does not make sense.
It does make sense.
Like I said earlier, with the contract stipulations, there's going to be a lot of names that are going to lose out on money because of this. So, speaking of losing out on money, let's talk about All-NBA, okay?
Yes.
This is going to be tough. I think there are some locks, though. So let's get the locks out of the way. I think the guys we've mentioned throughout this podcast, I think Joel Embiid is a lock. Yes. Right?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes.
Sorry, I thought we were playing the game here. No,
yes.
don't worry.
No.
Lock. Nikola Jokic, also a lock. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Giannis Antetokounmpo, a lock. Yes. Jason Tatum, a lock. Yes. SGA, a lock. Yep. Your guy, Luka Doncic, also a lock. Yep. I think Donovan Mitchell, also a lock. Damian Lillard, for what he's done this season, I think is probably a lock. Domantas Sabonis, also a lock.
Yeah.
I know there's going to be talk about Bam and what he's done, but no. I'm sorry, but Sabonis' impact this season, where the Kings are in the standings, how impactful he's been on the offense of that team, it's Sabonis. It is clear cut. Domantas Sabonis is your All-NBA third. The only thing that could change things is that Anthony Davis is also considered a center, but I highly doubt, with the amount of games that AD has missed, that he gets the nod here.
Okay. Interesting. I have him in there.
Oh, I just mean at center. Oh,
I got you.
Sabonis will be considered a center, so I don't think he gets it over Sabonis.
I got you.
There's a very good chance AD becomes an All-NBA player. So now we had how many? We pretty much have all the guard spots locked except the third team all guard spots.
Yes.
I'm curious to see how you ordered them though, the guards, because I feel like the names are there.
Yeah.
But the order I want to know. Yeah. And then we got to go to forward, which is just a shit show of all shit shows. So go ahead. Tell me who your guards are.
So first I have Luka.
Okay.
And this pains me, but I have Steph.
Ooh, you have Steph.
I do.
You have Steph on.
I do have Steph in there.
Very interesting.
Because again, and it's hard because I keep preaching on this team success. But Steph, I don't know. He's in there. 2, second team.
Yeah.
Or do you want to keep going? You want to go through them?
Keep going.
Second, I have Dame and Shea.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Shy. I have Shy.
Third
team.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I thought it was Shy. I thought he corrected everybody.
Really?
Yeah,
Shy
he said it's pronounced Shy on Instagram one day, and I was like, since when?
Huh.
But
it's news to me. I got to go ask his uncle. Okay, go ahead.
Double check. Third team, De'Aaron Fox, Donovan Mitchell.
Okay. So our order is different. Okay.
Let's hear it.
But also, I think we'd be remiss to not mention Devin Booker.
Yeah, because, especially lately, yeah.
Yeah, he's been cooking. He's been absolutely on fire recently, like 30 on 50, 40, 90 type stuff. And that's incredible. I think the winning record, and I know it's crazy to say because they're only one spot out, probably gives the edge to Fox because he's been incredible. All the clutch stats. He's going to win the Clutch Player of the Year, ladies and gentlemen. We're not talking about that award on here, but yeah, he's going to win the Clutch Player of the Year this year. And Fox, I think, gets the nod ahead of Booker over that. So I think we're good with the guards. The order I have differently. I have Shea as my first team All-NBA guy, along with Luka. And then my second team is Dame and Mitchell.
And Mitchell, okay.
Yes.
Interesting. I thought you were going to go Fox for some reason.
So the reason I have Dame, because Dame has been ridiculous all season. He played the minimum amount of games, 58, I believe, and he shut down for the year. But like this is Dame's best season of his career. He's going to make an All-NBA spot for me, and I had to give him the edge over Steph and over Fox. So Steph and Fox are my All-NBA third team guys.
Got you.
And I think the reason with Steph is just games played. Like he's only played 51 games. SGA has played more games than him. Luka has played more games than him. Dame it has actually technically played more games than him. Donovan Mitchell has played more games. So it's just games played when it comes to Steph. Otherwise, I think I understand having him in your first team.
Fair enough.
The bigs are clear cut as well. Embiid, Jokic, Sabonis. Those are your centers that are going to be the All NBA centers. Depending on who wins MVP, probably ends up getting that first team between Jokic and Embiid. And then you have Giannis and Tatum as your forwards. So now, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a pen and pencil, if you've written all this down for us, that means there is only 4 spots left for one of the following players: Jaylen Brown, Julius Randle, Jimmy Butler, Pascal Siakam, Jaren Jackson Jr., Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Lauri Markkanen.
Good God.
How are we supposed to do this? So I had some difficulties in doing this. And I didn't know how to approach it because there really is 2 ways to approach this. And that's why at the start of this podcast, ladies and gentlemen, I said you can approach this by saying games played. And if you weigh games played heavily, then the list of forwards should be as follows. It should be Jimmy Butler, it should be Julius Randle, it should be Pascal Siakam, it should be Lauri Markkanen. Those should be your all NBA forwards. But if we're talking about pure impact, and what the overall metrics say, what the advanced stats say, it should be Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard. That's who your all NBA forwards should be if you're doing it purely based on advanced numbers. And I think you could find a healthy mix in between there. Mm-hmm. But for me, I think if I had to write 2 of those names in pen, it would be Jimmy Butler and it would be Julius Randle. The other ones, I think you can have a conversation. And it's tough because I mentioned this earlier on the pod, but Pascal's might lose $70, $80 million worth of money. And it's because there's 2 spots and he's competing against Jaylen Brown and KD and Kawhi and Paul George and Anthony Davis and LeBron James and Lauri Markkanen. And a considerable amount of those guys have more rapport amongst NBA voters than him. It's just a matter of fact. People are going to vote for Braun because it's LeBron. People are going to vote for KD because it's KD. People are going to vote for Kawhi and Paul George because they're Kawhi and Paul George.
Yeah.
And even if you're having a better season, it's not going to mean you're going to be an all-NBA guy. And that's unfortunate to hear.
Reality.
So talk to me about your forward spots.
So we've already established first team, correct? Have we?
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Yeah. I mean, unless you have any other than Giannis and Tatum.
No, those are the 2 that I've got.
Okay.
So second team, I've got Kawhi and KD.
Okay, cool. All right.
I do. And then third, I've got Jimmy Butler and Julius Randle.
Okay. So you went down the middle.
I've got a little bit of a blend.
You went down the middle.
I know.
No. But I think like that is fair because Kawhi in 2023 has been magnificent.
He's been unbelievable.
But he's only played, how many games has he played? He's played like 47 games. Yeah, he's played 47 games.
It's crazy. I think.
Yeah, I want to confirm something before we head out here.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I think my argument for Kawhi, and obviously we all know how great he's been playing and the numbers, blah, blah, blah. But when you look at the Clippers and you're looking at the Western Conference and you're having the conversation that we've been having about the playoff picture and the standings and the matchups, you simply cannot count out the Clippers, even though they've lost someone as significant as Paul George because of Kawhi Leonard and the version of Kawhi Leonard that we're seeing right now.
So I just want to say this. I think Kawhi is ineligible.
What? Because of the games?
Yeah, I think he is ineligible. I just want to confirm one.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, so he's played 47 games. This slipped over my radar too. He played 47 games. The minimum requirement is 58.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which means that Kawhi will be ineligible, which also means that Paul George will be ineligible.
Ouch.
So yeah. That's how the cookie crumbles there. And if we look at the other guys who might be ineligible, let me look at this. Anthony Davis is at 50, right?
Shoot.
And the Lakers have 6 more games left. So he might not be eligible. Nope. Actually, he won't be eligible.
He won't be, yeah.
And LeBron James, which is at 49, he won't be eligible. So now I'm looking at this.
Very interesting.
Actually, now that I'm looking at this actually becomes a lot easier. It helps you out.
Pascal might get his money.
Yeah, Pascal might get his money because now you can look at it and say, okay, well,
58. Interesting.
Yeah, hold on. Let me double check one more thing. Jimmy Butler, how many games has he played? He's played 61, so he's definitely going to make it.
Jimmy will be in there, yeah.
Yeah, so I would say, look, if we're going based on that, Jimmy's going to make it. Julius Randle's going to make it, he's played 77 games this season. I think Pascal probably makes it. And I think either Lauri Markkanen or, whoever else you want to say.
How many has KD played, you said?
KD has played
here it is. Hold on. It's
43 games. 43
okay,
games
yeah, shoot. Wow.
Yeah.
That is interesting. That is so interesting because I didn't know about the 58 game rule, but when we're talking about the CBA conversations happening right now and all of this money that's potentially off the table for these big name guys, maybe people can just scoff at that amount like, oh, that's nothing for them. Like, think about all the secondary sources of income, blah, blah, blah. That's nothing to them. But then you think about the majority of the league and guys that will never make the amount alone that they just missed by missing this team. And so that to me it's all very significant. And this rule that obviously I'm just finding out about, I think, and the CBA, it's going to be very interesting to see how that gets worked out. Because I think that there's a very big conversation happening there.
So I'm gonna, you know what? Let's leave it there because I'm not 100% sure what the 58 number is based on. So it's saying that. Let me see here. Yeah, so like there have been players before who have made the All NBA. You know what I mean?
Without being at 58 games.
Without being at 58 games.
Interesting.
So I don't think it's as, kind of emphasized with All NBA as it is for like scoring title and assist leader and things like that. Because I know for that you have to have played a minimum amount of games. OG Anunoby just played his 58th game of the season, and that's why he's probably going to be the Steal champion. Same thing with Damian Lillard. He played the 58 games this season. He's eligible to be – he's hit the minimums. I want to confirm about All NBA before we do this. So give me a second. Let's if the producers at home can do the 5 minutes later SpongeBob thing and do this for us. 1 second. Let me figure this out. 5 minutes later. Oh, okay. However, to be eligible for any postseason award, MVP, All NBA, there's no minimum number. It is left up to individual voter to decide. I found it.
So specifically.
Yeah.
So specifically for.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, cool. I'll jump back. I'll explain.
Okay, wonderful. Because
welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. After a couple of minutes of Googling, we figured out our answer. I mostly got confused because someone had mentioned that 58 number to me, and I wasn't sure if it applied to All NBA because I know it doesn't apply to MVP. It doesn't apply to Rookie of the Year. It doesn't apply to any of the other awards. Does it apply to the team award, if you will, in the All NBA? So it doesn't, ladies and gentlemen. You do not have to have a minimum number of games played in order to be eligible for All NBA. That is something they are considering, though, when it comes to the new CBA. They are thinking of adding that as a rule and maybe even making it the 58 that we're talking about. 58 only matters for scoring title, for steals leaders, for Rookie of the Year, whatever you have it. So going back to that means we're screwed. that means Jimmy, that means Kawhi, that means KD, that means Braun. All those guys are more than eligible to be All NBA players, which makes this very tough, very tough. And it makes it so that guys like Pascal probably end up losing out on some money, a lot of money.
Yeah. I think that's probably what's going to happen here.
Yeah. Quick news note before we end up heading out. Someone reported. I've been told that Andrew Wiggins is back in the Bay Area. He spent most of the time in Weeks. That was Jason Dumas. Okay. He was a Philadelphia reporter. Look, who knows? But bringing on the NBA and bringing on Andrew Wiggins back into the Warriors is such a huge thing, massive thing. So very, very excited for that. Very, very excited for that. So, folks, ladies and gentlemen, after our kerfuffle, after figuring out how many games are played, what's eligible, which NBA award, all that fun stuff. We are down to the final week of the season. One more week left, and then we will know. We will figure it out. Who are the playoff matchups? Who are the play-in matchups? All that stuff will be decided. Will Lauren's Dallas Mavericks be playing a play-in game, or will they be waiting on that 10th pick in the lottery?
They better
Will the Toronto Raptors, will they be, fighting for 7 or 8, or will they be fighting for 9 or 10? We will know in the coming weeks. So, thank you very much for tuning in to the Objective Basketball Podcast. We appreciate you guys as always. Do the subscribing, do the liking, do the commenting, and we'll see you guys later. Take care.
Follow hosts at Just S Baraheni on all socials and at The Lauren Gunn on Twitter. The Objective Basketball Podcast, delivering the NBA to you like no other.